This tutorial is going to be looking at how we can add gradients and effects to our text. Now, unlike shapes, gradients can't be added to text by using these options up here. If I click on that, you can see it hasn't actually changed our text, even though it has changed our fill color up here. So it's a slightly more complicated process to add gradients to our text. Firstly, we need to find the appearance option. It sits on the side. If you have the collapsed view on the right hand side of the screen, it's the one that looks like a sunflower or the sun. If you click on that, it will come up. As defaults, it will have type, it will have characters, and it will have an opacity. At the bottom left of the appearance box, you have add a new stroke, add a new fill, and add new effects. Click on the add new fill to add your fill in. The stroke will also appear, but it will have the red line through it. It means that it is not being used. When we click on the drop down for the fill, we get all the same options as we have on the fill at the top of the screen. Only this time when we click on them and we select a gradient, the gradient will actually be applied. This is because this fill is now being applied to our type layer. So it will actually then apply to the text. If you want to have more fill options for the gradients than what are just the default options on this, you've got what looks like a little row of books with one falling over. If you click on that, go up to the gradients, and there is a whole host of different gradient options that you can use. When you select one, you'll get this pop out, and you can just use these two arrow buttons to move through and find gradients that you want to use. Click on any of them to see it come up on your text so you can view how it looks. So let's put that one on. Okay, maybe not. Just find something that looks very reasonably decent here. It's not going to blend too much with our background. There we go. So we've got nice dark red text. Now, that gives us our fill as a gradient. We can also, if we want to, add in a stroke as a gradient. So if I go to that, you can see the gradient around the stroke. Now, we might want to turn the stroke weight down so that it's not taking over quite so much of the picture. Only on this option, we can only do single whole numbers. We need to go into the stroke panel, which we do by clicking on the orange line stroke, before we can start changing things to smaller sizes. So I'm going to set this to 0.5. There are different caps for the ends of strokes. These are something you can just have a play around with. You can set up the line to dashed if you want to. You can set different size dashes on this bit here. If you want your stroke to show direction with arrowheads, you can set those there. And the profile is quite interesting, and it can help to simulate brush pressures on your strokes. So you can see there, this one starts off small, gets bigger as it goes round, and then thins out again on each individual letter. And again, just have a play through with these, see the difference that you get, see what sort of style you get, and which one you would like. I'm going to set to this one. You can change the opacity as well, so we could set this to screen, which will give us a different effect. And it really is just a case of sitting and going through and seeing which one you particularly like, if any of them. I'm going to just set it back to normal. So that's the fill and the stroke. But we can also add effects. into our text as well. Now, there are quite a few different effects that you can add in terms of artistic effects and converting things to 3D, distorting and transforming text. But the other option that you have, instead of using the effects filters from here, is to go onto the graphic styles. Now, ideally, you would do the graphic styles before you do all this formatting, because sometimes when you apply the graphic styles, this gets taken away. But it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes it will keep it there. So I'm going to find a drop shadow, apply a drop shadow to it. So that's taken us back to black. If I go back in here, you'll notice that our stroke and our fill have disappeared. So I'll just quickly add those back in. Oh, I will, as soon as I remember what settings I was using. Use that. Oh, maybe not that one. That one will do. So go into here and just turn our stroke size down. And we will set that. So now on here, if we scroll down, this drop shadow effect has been put in. It's an orange piece of text with a dotted line under it, so it's a link. So when we click on it, we can get a settings box. Now you might look at that and think there's not much of a drop shadow on there. So we can tick the preview box so we can see the changes. And firstly, the main thing which makes a difference is the amount of blur. So if we lower the blur on this, you can now see the drop shadow of the letters. You can move it further out, you can move it further in, you can keep going into the negative so it goes to the other side. Depends on where you want your light source to be coming from. So I'm just going to move this around a little bit. And we'll set it there. You've got different options here. You've got a darkness option, which at the moment is 50%, so it's not solid black. You could change that down so it was even paler by setting it to 25%. Don't hit the enter key unless you want to come out. Or you could change it up to make it darker. So if I set this to 75, then it will come in darker. Or you also have the option to set specific colours. So if I was to come over here down to green and click OK and retick the preview because I managed to untick it, that has now been changed with the green. And you can see if I move through here now that I've got the preview reticked, the colour will change as we go through. We click OK, and now we've got that pink. You've got different settings here as well that you can change, and depending on which one you've got set will change the effect that you get. I'm just going to set this back to darkness for a black and click OK. That's the basics of adding effects and colours and gradients to text. Have a play around and see what you can actually get the text to do.